Welcome to the Lithium battery bank version of the Float Plan podcast. Glad you're here with us today. We have Max from Pacific Coast Yachting Services, and of course Tim and Matt.
Hey guys,
Here to chat with a little bit of show and tell with Max's really cool Victron board that we've got going up here. Point of today, we're going to talk about all things lithium. I know a lot of boaters have been talking about this. It's sort of the hot topic right now. If you look at any Bluetooth network around any marina, you're going to see all these Victrons pop up between battery monitoring systems and servo GXs and everything else. We thought it'd be fun to come down and spend a little bit of time with Max and go through how this all worked and hopefully give you some info on lithium and how the new battery systems work.
we get this question all the time where people are looking at boats. Hey, does this have lithium? Hey, or I'm thinking about going to lithium. What do you think about this? Hey, I can get these really cool batteries. They're really inexpensive, but what am I looking at? So Max and I have had a lot of conversations. We've had a lot of clients that have come here to get lithium banks installed, and figured this would be a great time to introduce Max. So Max, why don't you go ahead and kind of give us a little intro on you and who you are and where we are and what we're doing.
Sure. My name is Max French. I am the general manager at Pacific Coast Yachting Services. I started in this business about 16 years ago as a technician and worked my way up and have been in operation here at Pacific Coast for about 6 years. Before that, I cruised on a traveling yacht, did some deck experience and engineering experience, and rounded it all together. I'm a boater myself, so if I'm not here, I'm usually out on my own boat or fixing it, most of the time fixing it, and yeah, I love it. Eat, sleep, and breathe anything boating related.
You guys are probably starting to see a little thing. Not only are the people that we're bringing onto this people that can actually help you, but we are all boaters. That's the fun part of the whole thing, is that we love to talk boats. And the funny enough, today, where we were sitting at the Pacific Coast Yachting Services was actually my old office 15 years ago. So Max is actually sitting exactly where I used to sit. So in any case, we'll kind of get into it. So Max, what do we have here? Can you run us through this display that is exceptionally well put together?
Sure, yeah, thanks. The way we've used this display is it's mostly used for boat show purposes and just giving a live breakdown of really what it takes or what is involved in a battery system, a lithium battery system. There's more than just the lithium battery system involved up here, but there are other components that go hand in hand and go well with a large battery bank or an inverted bank just like that. So mostly used for display purposes, but also it's fully functional, so we can turn things on, turn things off, and really have a better look behind the curtain at what it really takes.
Real quick, why are people calling you for this? Just give them a little indication of why. What starts the conversation about why lithium and what's important and what's changed, especially in the last 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, I mean, the caveat, there's, boating in the Northwest is so unique. It's so different compared to most boaters around the country, really. We rely a lot on battery power. We rely a lot on inverted power on our bigger boats. We like to sit on anchor and quietly and not have to run our generators. So battery banks have always been a big deal. Batteries have been severely misused, misinstalled, not installed, designed correctly even by manufacturers. There's a lot of information out there over the years that wasn't correct as far as how to care for a battery, how to properly size a battery bank. For decades, if you've had an inverter bank with an AGM or lead acid bank, the rule of thumb is always you get 4 to 6 years out of some batteries, maybe more. Now, the hard part is that's if they're perfectly cared for. And when I say perfectly cared for, the battery manufacturer has a set of specifications that should be followed for them to survive as long as they claim that they will. So that's that they're installed in a ventilated box, that they have the correctly sized charge leads, the biggest thing really is that the charge current going to the batteries is within spec. So if this battery should be charged at 60 amps, and you have a 60 amp charger, but you have 4 batteries, now you've divided that up by 4, that battery's not getting its actual, its recommended charge rate. Boat builders don't look that deep into it. They just put as many batteries as they can fit. Owners would say, hey, let me get as many batteries as I can fit. I need to get 12 hours, I need to get overnight, I need to, whatever, however many batteries we can put in there. Realistically, you should have been adding chargers the entire time. In addition to that, these batteries can't go past 50% state of charge. They have to be charged back up to 100% state of charge before they start discharging again. They have to be within a certain temperature range. There's all these very fine details that contribute to the battery actually living the life that they claim it can. So that never happens.
So likelihood of that's about zero.
I mean, how many times have you on your own boat, have you gone down and there's no power? Who knows for how many days, right? Maybe it was 2 days, 3 days, 24 hours, whatever. Batteries deplete down to zero. There's nothing controlling that or telling that to, hey, we've got a discharge situation that is uncontrolled. Let's shut things down. That doesn't exist. It didn't exist on batteries with that technology, of what everybody's kind of grown up with and been used to. So then, as an installer, if you'd install a set of 4 or 8Ds in a brand new system, 2 years later, the client calls and he's like, my batteries they won't last more than 2 hours. You installed these 2 years ago. Something's wrong with the batteries. Well, no, it's, how many times have they been discharged past 50%? Have they not been recharged to 100%? Have they been depleted to zero? Have they, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's just no way to perfectly care for those batteries. So, 6, 7, 8 years ago when the lithium technology came out, that kind of solved all these problems. So for one, you take out all of the management. The management is done for you. Not only that, there's so much more energy dense with the lithium chemistry that there's just so many, the list of benefits goes on and on and on. So from a user's perspective, once they start to understand, well, it'll last 10 years, I can go double the amount of time that I could before. There's all these incredible perks that they hear this and it's immediately, okay, that's what I want. The back end tech of it isn't exactly as exciting to them.
It's not quite that easy.
No. So that's what they hear, that's what they want. So to make it happen, though, is a little bit more complicated. And that's what the barrier of entry back when it was new was a lot steeper.
Say barrier entry.
Mm-hmm.
Can you quantify that?
Sure, cost. So
Yeah.
very expensive. Yeah.
We're talking, we've had clients, and I've had clients that came to you years ago when it was still new and before, like any other technology, prices do come down. But what were you seeing people spending initially when this technology first came out using a brand like Victron? And if you could also maybe talk a little bit about other brands or what you've seen in off-brand batteries before we kind of dive into this. Just what were you seeing initially 6 years ago, and what scared the hell out of you?
Yeah, batteries were double the price. So if I take, just say, a 70 footer in that range in a full system, we were probably $90,000, somewhere in that range. And now we're
Just in batteries or full install?
no full installation.
Full install.
Yeah, and so that's a hard question also. And this is a question that at a boat show or somebody that is new to this is walking around and asking, hey, how much for my boat? How much would it cost to put this in my boat? It's like, okay, there are so many variables. What size boat? What are you doing? What do you want to invert? How much time are you trying? How many engines do you have? What kind of accessory charging can we do? Are you going to do solar? There's just so much more that you have to discuss. And so for a 70 footer that was getting 12 hours a night, overnight inverted, just your typical inverted loads, not talking anything like air conditioning, just 120 circuits, refrigeration, entertainment, all your outlets, 12 hours, 75, 85 grand for parts and installation. That's come down for two reasons. One, parts are cheaper. They're more affordable because they're making more of them. Technology has just advanced a lot, but then also we have it down now where the installation does go a lot faster. Granted, every single boat is so different from the last that it's all a very custom design on your exact system, so the installation varies dramatically. But the cost is, it's probably, you're almost 50-50 on parts and labor. Sometimes you're skewing a little bit higher on the labor than you are parts, just depending on your system and the design of your boat. But
And speaking of boat design, just if you know, Max is actually helping us. We sold a brand new 65 outer reef that's in production here shortly, and Max is actually working with us on the onset to install a lithium bank in that brand new outer reef. It will be here in the Pacific Northwest. We're excited for what's coming, and more on that to come with all the additional equipment that it will run. It will be quite the exciting project, and we look forward to bringing that to you in the future. Kind of getting back to the origination of lithium, what did you see in the beginning? What was the original type of lithium bank that you saw? The chemistry has changed, right? There used to be lithium, now they're lithium phosphate. What have you seen in the changes in lithium in the last 5-6 years?
Well, there haven't been a whole lot of changes in chemistry in what products we're using. The beginning, when you started to hear the word lithium, that was really, I mean, you go back to like the 787 and the catastrophes they had. But when it started to go into the boat world, it's always been lithium iron phosphate.
Mm-hmm.
So lithium ion phosphate is a different chemistry of battery.
Mm-hmm.
So the differences between the two are lithium ion is all your phones, your power tools. It's very, very compact electronics that need battery power to last, so they're much more energy dense with lithium ion. Mm-hmm. It's less stable. So it's less stable, it's less safe. So what we use in a battery like this, so in the marine RV world, even your solar off-grid technologies for off-grid homes, cabins, things like that, that's all lithium iron phosphate. So it's a much more stable chemistry. It's less energy dense, but it's the safety factor is so much higher that it works so much. I mean, EVs also use that. That technology is advancing a lot, so you're able to. They're becoming more energy dense, but that's always a big question: is are these safe?
We all heard about the initial boat fires and everything else.
Yep.
Using kind of knockoff batteries, especially out of we saw a lot of them coming out of China at one point. It's changed dramatically. So you can give us a little indication of battery weight too, because that's something
Sure.
that comes in. All these things come into play, right?
Yeah, you save. I mean, there's two reasons you save weight. One is the battery itself is a lot lighter than your standard battery. This is a 12 volt, 200 amp. What we're more used to because of the bigger boats, they're generally 24 volt boats. So we're using. This is actually a 24 volt battery. So in the past, with an AGM battery, like an 8D, for example, you're using two 8Ds because you're wiring them in series to create 24 volt. Each battery is 12 volt. You combine that to make 24 volt. So you're saving space for one, a lot of space. You could almost take out two 8Ds and put in like 2 to 3 of these. Close. It's going to be bigger. They're longer. They're a little bit taller. But you can squeeze a lot more battery in the same space that you had with your 8D. So you're getting more battery power out of that, but you're also saving. You probably shed. These are still, they're not light by any means, but they're a whole lot lighter than an 8D. You're probably shedding a third of the weight, and then you're at the same time almost doubling your capacity of battery. That's more of a factor in the smaller boats, of course, the light, or the installation. That's the best part, is you're not lugging around 80 batteries is really nice.
Yeah, I'm sure your techs would have something to say about how nice those are in every situation.
Absolutely. But yeah, the safety, touching on the safety factor again, it's a big part of the safety is not necessarily, we've gotten a bad rap, but a lot of it comes down to the installation. The installation and then some of the other battery brands out there, when lithium started to become very popular, and a lot of this was due, just like we saw in boat sales, but COVID really accelerated people upgrading their boats, people wanted to spend more time on their boats, seeing the capabilities of being able to advance the inverter systems, and so people were buying just off-the-shelf generic brands that were drop-in ready, which the term drop-in I absolutely hate. I hope that doesn't stick in this market, but it might, because you can't just take an 8D out and put a lithium battery in its place. The brands will market that and they'll try to use that for a long time, but in reality you just should never do that because of all the supporting mods that come with it. We try to stick with Victron because of the fact that it's all integrated. All of the control side of it, the BMS, the charging and inverting side, it's all controlled with proprietary network. So everything is speaking to each other throughout. So if there's a problem, there's a sequence of shutdowns. If you were to take just a brand that is not a Victron battery and drop it into the system, it would have what's called an internal BMS. So it's protecting itself internally, but there's no communication outside the battery to the charger, to the inverter, to the rest of the system to tell the charger to shut down. It's going to shut the battery down, but not the charger. There are brands now that we have been designing with that they're very good batteries. They're at a higher price point. They're bigger, larger capacities, and they have the capabilities of actually networking with the Victron inverter chargers, not the BMS, they have their own BMS, but the servo, all of your remote control in a very safe way. But integration is really why we stick with Victron in, because they're the longest in the game by far.
Do you find that their interface is a little easier to use? I fortunately don't have Lithium in Onzuelo, but I do have a Victron system in my boat. Do you find that it is easy for people to learn and understand it? What do you like about Victron in that capacity over others?
Yeah, it is easier for someone that doesn't have the experience, as much electrical knowledge or experience. You just put it in a nice little compact, readable package to understand the flow of power and really what's going on. Yes, Victron by far does it better than anybody else. So that is also a big selling point. This screen here is the user interface for the Victron system. This is their new UI. So the older UI, I don't know what you have.
You got
I have
the
older UI.
This has buttons on it, roll around
Yep.
thing.
So the color control
Still works great, by the way.
Yeah, the color control is the older UI, which is a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit more user-friendly. This is a little more modern and updated. You can switch back and forth, which is nice. But yes, the user interface is very easy to operate. You can get you can get deep into the back end of this and see a lot of features that aren't applying to your installation, but the general overview is very simple.
You know what we find, even with electronics, we all use the same things. We use radar, we use chart plotter, we use sonar, we use different types of sonar if we're fishing, but it's generally all the same, obviously AIS. What are most of the functions that you see people using on the Victron system?
One of the best features about the Victron system is the VRM portal, which is huge for support. So the VRM portal is this up here, so your servo, which is kind of the brains of the whole system, so it's networked to every single device. It has the capabilities to either tether to a Wi-Fi network, which is on board your boat, or you can hardwire it to a network switch, which is what we prefer to do, so you're not having to deal with latency issues. And what's nice about that is now I can have complete visibility into the system remotely, wherever you're at, as long as you have an internet connection. And that also, as the user or the owner, you also have that same functionality. If you want to check on your boat and make sure you still have power, and you can control it. So what's nice for me is if I have a client that's way up north and he's having an issue on the boat and maybe the system's shutting down, I can get on and I can actually look at historical data and see the amount of information is overwhelming. You can see all of your data from your input voltage and amperage to your outputs on DC, inputs on DC. You can see the state of the charge of each charger, of what charge rate each one of them is in. You can see when a fault has been come up, any sort of spike. So you can really kind of do a full analysis of what could have caused. And we'll sync it up to we'll put an accessory or external GPS antenna on that unit so we can tell how fast the boat was going. So if we have alternator regulators that are installed, we know generally kind of what RPM roughly that alternator regulator was spinning up to. We can dissect the system and generally reverse engineer and kind of figure out what the problem is. Or we can see exactly what the problem is and fix it, and I can actually come in remotely and control the system too. So earlier on when we were doing these, I would not do an installation unless the boat had an outside connection, because I can't, for something that is a little bit complicated early on, to be able to support it, I really insisted on having that connection.
So basically, for all you, this is your new big brother. It's basically he'll know where you are, what you're doing, and all that. Honestly, we have clients that use Max all the time, and they pick up the phone to call him as they're in Desolation Sound, as they're up in Alaska, as they're rounding Vancouver Island. So thank you, Starlink. Elon, well done on Starlink. And this is what you get when you use somebody like Max and you use a yard like Pacific Coast Yachting Services.
From a practical standpoint too, I mean, we have the new UI on Twinfish, and I spend a lot of time at my house in Carefree, Arizona. Right, so sitting there in Scottsdale, basically, right on the golf course, saying, "How's the boat doing?"
Yep.
I mean, that's a game changer from trying to log into cameras. You can actually see everything that's happening on board the boat, which all that electricity, that's a big deal. I mean, the fridges, freezers, all that stuff's running nonstop. And if those batteries go, like to your point, right, that's a lot more expensive than adding a servo than a VRM
Yeah.
portal connection.
Absolutely. I mean, that's changed things for a lot of people. And once you get a taste of it too, it's very nice.
Yeah. I don't have to call Matt and beg him to go down to
Yeah.
the marina and check on the boat anymore.
Yeah, you can. I mean,
You know, you can-
to add to that too, so another feature, going back to that is there's a lot of capabilities of that device, but generator auto starts. That is a function that has been around for a long time, but in this situation, utilizing the servo, the generator auto start can be programmed with an external. There's a built-in relay in this servo, so it's just a simple on-off relay that we will build depending on the generator. Some generators just a simple on-off start sequence, and that's very easy to simulate. But if it's an older generator that you got the preheat, you got to hold the preheat and then hit the start and wait a certain amount of time before you let go of the preheat. It's a bit of a, there's a time. So we simulate that process with a set of timed relays. We build a little relay box for you. So you can tell within the servo, you can tell the generator when to start, whether that's because of a state of charge or because of a high. If you're inverting and you're getting close to the threshold of that inverter, you can have the generator start just to supply additional power to whatever you're doing. There's so many conditions in which you can do that. But if you're at home and the marina has lost power, let's just say that, you can get in here and start your generator from home. Granted, you have to solve the issue of switching power over, but that's solvable too. We can do that. But that is such a huge benefit to be able to fully, you can bring power back and you can even tell it to shut down whenever it gets to a certain point, whether it's state of charge or whatever. But it is a very, very nice feature to have, and that's something that's very common. We generally entice owners to install that or to do that feature because it is fairly simple to do. So very worthwhile.
And having the relationship with the yard to be able to log into the VRM portal,
Yep.
even if you're not paying attention to get
Yep.
down to the boat. I mean, can you guys talk a little bit about your service on
Yeah.
monitoring these systems and being able to take care of it?
Yeah,
Whether
absolutely.
If the owner's gone for
Yep.
a
Yep.
week and doesn't log into VRM, is there a backup? And how do you help with that?
Yeah, so we can, I am generally, myself and the technician, depending on how we divvy it up, generally I'm the one monitoring it. And what I do is I have the VRM has the capability of sending email alerts. So again, certain conditions. You set alerts for shore power has been lost, so your input power to the inverter charger has been lost. So now hey, there's a problem either with the boat coming, or the power coming to the boat, or within the boat, there's a power issue. And so you can get an email alert that gets sent out to the owner or just to me. And then we're able to alert him and say, or them and go, we can get to the boat where the boat is, etc. Funny story though, a good client of yours, a big client of mine, bought a new boat, and we did a very big installation on his big inverter system. And we put external regulators on the alternators. He was moving his boat down to Portland, and I knew he was moving his boat at the time. He had not done that long of a trip on the boat yet. He was up in the islands since he's bought it, since we did the installation. When the boats leave, I'm always, both paranoid, making sure that they're having a good experience, that our system's working as it should. So I'm constantly even poking around, checking, making sure everything's looking good. So I knew he had gotten an early start. He was leaving, I think he was leaving Friday Harbor, and he was going down to Portland. But I woke up that Sunday morning, and I'm like, I wonder how the boat's doing. And I opened my VRM portal, and I'm looking at his boat, and I saw his system was in a discharge state. And I'm like, I know he's running the boat. We've got alternating power. That boat generally has the generator running when he's underway. He was just around the corner heading south. And I called him and I said, hey, how's it going? Oh, it's beautiful. We're just cruising. I had nothing great or good to say about the trip. I'm like, hey, do you know your boat's shut down or the system's shut down? He's like, oh, no, you didn't even know it. And so I was able to kind of walk him through. We reset it underway, and then he headed back home. But he had, I just happened to look at it, but still I would have gotten the alert eventually. But yes, it's a huge, the amount of times, and I will say also, the reliability of the Victron system. We install so many different systems, not just inverter systems, but every single system on a boat we've installed, some, by multiple brands. I've never had such a successful go at a product where we've just had so little issues. It's easier for me to recommend, it's easier for me to install. So from a support perspective, it's a very easy product to support, and if you have the right connectivity, it's even easier.
It seemed like, having sold obviously multiple brands of boats with all sorts of inverters, but you can still see some heart interface inverters out there. But what I have seen as broker over the last few years is the migration towards Victron. Magnusheim made a great one. Magnum made it. Those are all great inverters, and there's nothing wrong. Those are great inverters, but it seems like Victron kind of took the bull by the horns. They listened to what people actually wanted, and they designed their systems, their newer systems, to meet that. Because it used to be Victron, you'd see it, and it was a good system, probably a little more commercial than anything else, not really as prevalent in the pleasure boat market as we're seeing now.
Yeah, actually, funny topic with that, on that topic actually is, so before Victron really elevated their brand and really, again, listened to the consumer and really decided what was best for their market, some builders were using multi-pluses. So that's all they had. They had multi-plus, they had like a digital, what was called digital multi-control, and it was just a little switch with a dial on it, and it would tell you an input amperage and you can adjust it up and down. That's all it was. And at that time, Magnum was really superior. That was like the new updated inverter that you were taking hard interfaces out and putting in a Magnum. And they had really good support. Magnum did. They were just right up north up here, and so we could get them on the phone. And we were really pushing Magnum, and to the point where there was such a little support on Victron at the time and such little knowledge on Victron, we would actually take Victron inverters out and put Magnums in place. And now we're doing the exact opposite. And all the Magnums are coming out and the Victrons are going in, because Magnum, they made a lot of changes, but they didn't stay ahead of the curve. But this technology was out there in off-grid homes, and they're based out of the Netherlands, and so there's a lot of off-grid energy sources out in that region. That the tech was there, they just hadn't really. They slowly were pushing it into the marine market, but then as soon as that caught wind, and people got.
So Max, not everybody can go to the full extreme, or our boats, like myself, it's a 1987, so I'm not going to be able to incorporate all this. So just coming from the basics, where can somebody start? What do you recommend?
So if you want to, there's two ways to answer that. One, do you really need lithium? And so that's the first question you really want to ask. Do you really need a lithium battery? The way you answer that question is, what type of boating do you do? Do you actually go out and sit on the hook off the dock? Do you have a generator on the boat? Because some of the smaller boats don't have generators. So if you don't have a generator, you're either you need a energy storage of some sort, or you generate it from your main engines. There's many ways to do that. But you just go dock to dock. If you go dock to dock, you do not need lithium, and you shouldn't spend the money on it. So in that case, you can stick with an AGM battery. If you just, if you're in, maybe spend a couple nights on anchor, still maybe don't need lithium. So if you can simplify that and take that out of the equation, all you really need, if you want to invert the boat and have, when I say invert the boat, want to have household power, 120 volt outlets, a TV, a refrigerator or two, you need to have an inverter. So an inverter is going to take your DC battery power and convert that into usable 120 volt AC power. So all that needs really is a battery and an inverter.
And any battery, right?
Any battery.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the Victron inverter's going to work with that.
Yeah, so that inverter's programmed to the battery chemistry, whether that's AGM, lead acid, lithium, what have you. If you want to go into lithium, if you think that, hey, I do spend a lot of time on anchor, I'm not spending a lot of time at the dock when I am there, and the boat's a smaller boat, or you don't have as many systems, or you're not trying to invert as many components, you may not need as many batteries. So you could get away with, especially if it's a little 12-volt boat, you could get away with one or two batteries. The thing you cannot get away from, unfortunately, is you can't get away from this. So this is absolutely necessary for lithium. So in this case, the BMS is the gatekeeper of the energy going in and out of this battery.
BMS stands for?
Battery Management System. So this is an absolute necessity. Now this is networked up to the servo, which incorporates all of the networking of the system and gives you the user interface. Now cost-wise, this is not that bad considering what you're doing. This is around $300 $300 or so. Now you need a screen to display the interface, and they make a 5-inch screen and a 7-inch screen, touch screen. You can display it as HDMI out, so like here I've got this is just for display purposes, I have a big 16-inch screen. It's all touch screen. So you can get creative with that, but you're not into that by much, and so the BMS is an absolute must. Can't avoid that with lithium. So you could do a single battery, just like you see here, single battery. These aren't necessary, but they are very nice. They make the installation nice and compact and easy.
Lynx distributor M10s, what do those do?
So the M10 is the newer generation of the distributor. What these are doing is, if you've ever looked at you look at your battery bank now, and you've got cables coming off each battery, and they're going to a big terminal strip. You've got a couple of ways to do that. Some of them are going to go to a battery switch. This is a nice compact way to do that, where you've got now another subject here with the lithium batteries is if you have batteries in parallel, you have to run a single cable from the battery to your distributor. You can't daisy chain them, because you're gonna deal with voltage drops, not even power coming in and out of the batteries. So this makes it very nice and simple for installation purposes. And then there's an individual fuse on each distributor, and it mates perfectly with the BMS. So this is your power in, and this is your power out. So these are all your loads. This is your line in, power in, BMS, which is a big contactor in the middle, and it says, okay, we'll pass power through. Everybody's okay to discharge, and everybody's okay to charge, so that contactor is closed. As soon as this decides that, okay, we've got a problem with whether there's a cell imbalance or a high temperature, or there's many situations where that would say, okay, we're going to open that contactor, there's no power coming in, there's no power coming out, we got to figure out what's wrong. Once everyone's happy, that contactor closes, and you're able to discharge and charge again. So this makes the installation nice and compact, and simplifies things. Again, these are not that high dollars, so we're talking $250 for each one of these, and this is under $1,000. This is right about $1,000. So all of this battery, an inverter charger, and a servo, and some sort of screen is all you need for a complete system. Now you have to wire, you have to bring power in, bring power out, and do the installation. So the installation part of it, if you are handy and understand basic electrical, you can do it, but because I get this question a lot, I highly recommend either speaking with someone like me or another individual that can help design your system, because we don't know, once you tie, a lot of boats, especially smaller boats, have their start batteries connected to their house batteries with an ACR, so an automatic charge relay, which is another contactor that's going to close and open when there's a source of charge coming in. It'll close to share the charge across the other battery bank, and then it'll discharge, it'll open up. And the problem with that is that your start batteries are not lithium, they're going to be lead acid or AGM. So whatever's charging the lithium bank is going to charge the start or the lead acid AGM bank at the same charge rate, which you'll boil a battery, you'll overcharge it, you'll have a lot of problems. So you got to isolate those, and there's ways to do that. The DC-DC charger, again, very simple to do. You can either go simple, or you can get a little bit more technical and get more power, but there's a solution for everything. But the simplest way to do it, 1 or 2 batteries, BMS or distributor, BMS distributor, servo, inverter charger, screen. That's really all you need.
And if you really like the idea of the VRN monitoring and weren't going to go lithium battery,
yeah,
where am I now? Am I inverter, servo, screen? Does that get me there?
Yep, just like we were explaining earlier, inverter charger and any battery, all you need to do is interface. You need a servo, and you should get something like a smart shunt or a BMV 712. The nice thing about the smart shunt is that it's the same form factor as the BMS. So if you're not ready for lithium yet, and you're deciding that you'll eventually probably get there, you can do most of the wiring and create the space for it by getting your distributors, because these are not lithium biased. You can do AGM or lead acid here too, because it's just distribution power coming in and out. And you can replace this BMS with a smart shunt, or a Lynx smart shunt. So it'll bolt up the exact same way, and then it'll network to your servo. So you'll also have your servo, which will work with any chemistry, and a screen, and that's all. Again, the smart shunt is, I want to say, in the $500, $600 range. and it'll get you the information you need for state of charge, battery state of charge, so you can take care of that battery the best you can. It'll show you a state of charge between 150 or 0%. You can see a lot of data through that, and that will all network through the servo, and you'll be able to do the VRM portal through that. Even simpler than that, you can do the BMV 712, which is just a small shunt that networks to a little round screen. The little round screen you have on your boat somewhere, and that's Bluetooth. But if you have a servo, you can run that little small screen, VE direct cable, into the servo, and now get all that same data for just the little BMV 712, and those are like $150. So there are ways to get a nice little entry into it and set yourself up to go lithium if that's the direction you think you'll want to go. So
that's what I wanted to ask, just because there's
Yeah.
so many people. I mean, when this lithium conversation comes up, it's because somebody lost their batteries, or they want
Yeah.
to spend a lot more time out. They need or want that data
Yep.
to be able to do it. So that was my question was, do you need to really spend the money and do a full install, or can you get there?
Yeah,
So it's nice to hear that you can get
stair
there.
step into it for
Okay.
sure.
Getting back to lithium, we can even run air conditioning systems on these now. Twin 10 kW inverters going to 240 volt, and there's all sorts of possibilities. with
Oh,
that.
it is, yeah. I mean, you can, the amount of flexibility, and it's all about, I mean, the thing about that too is it goes back to your installer, your designer. Whoever is, this system is, the possibilities are endless in how you design it. There's so many different options depending on how you want to use the boat, depending on what kind of loads you're actually trying to invert. So you really need to be speaking with somebody that knows the range of product and some of the supporting modifications that would go well with that system. So yeah, you can do air conditioning now, but your current air conditioning system that's 20 years old on your boat, if you just throw an inverted circuit to it, it'll do it, but it's going to draw a ton of power. So there are more efficient ways to do that now. There's newer products that make it incredibly easy, and that's a whole other rabbit hole. So
All right, if somebody wants to, they want to get a hold of you, your yard, or any of your techs, what's the best way to go about doing that?
yeah, our phone number, our website's probably the easiest way, so PacificCoastYachtingServices.com. Within there, you'll find all the contacts to the office. There's an email, it's just office@PacificCoastYachtingServices.com. That all ended up funneling eventually back to me, so if you have an inquiry about some type of work, that's a good way to get to us. The phone number is also another direct line to our receptionist that will transfer you to myself or Sean Kimmel, who is our service advisor.
What is that phone number?
The phone number is 206-397-4788. You'll get to one of us, and depending on what exactly you're looking for, we'll put you in touch with the right person. We do everything. We try and stay as a one-stop shop for most of our clients. These boats have a wide range of systems on them, and we have a specialist for essentially everything within that boat. And if we don't, we have some close business relationships with other industries or companies in the industry around the area that we can help connect you and make it as easy as possible.
And if you're wondering where they're located, I can tell you the exact address. It's 1115 North Lake Way, Seattle, Washington, 98103. As I said, this is my old office up here in the front of their building, so it brings back a lot of memories. And it is a super clean, super well organized yard. We'll give you a little tour of it here on the way out, and we do hope that you give them a call. Max was kind enough to provide the basics for us today, and can definitely have a more in-depth conversation should that be warranted.
What can somebody expect? Just timeline, just the process if they called and said, I'd like to explore entry level versus a full blown lithium design system. How long?
Yeah.
How much conversation is that? Are you going to charge them for that kind of a consultation?
Yeah.
What can somebody expect if they call you and say, talk to me about Victron?
Yeah, if it's a simple system, it's a pretty quick conversation, and what we'd like to do is come out to the boat and get a good understanding of what your expectations are and what you're trying to do, which is just a quick visit, a quick conversation, and we can do an estimate from there. We do not charge for estimates. We do not charge for us to go out to the boat.
Okay.
We make it, as fair as possible to give you an idea of really what it takes. But we generally do not charge for design time, depending on, if this is a massive system, we'll probably charge you a little bit for design time. But that's all, as long as we're installing it. That's not give free advice, but we do help our clients out as much as possible. So, Yeah, we'll go out, visit the boat, write up an estimate. If it's an intricate system, it might take a couple of weeks to really dial it all in and get the design right and start ordering parts. So.
As with anything in boating, plan ahead. Don't call them in June and say I'd like to be in Rose Harbor on the 4th of July on the hook with my new lithium bank. We all know it doesn't quite work like that. So plan ahead, and we'll get into yard periods and that in a future podcast episode, kind of what to plan around that.
Yes.
And there's some exciting stuff coming before we go. So
Yeah.
will you tell us a little bit about next door, maybe
Sure.
some new docks.
Yeah.
We're definitely gonna be back here. Later on in March. We'll go through this. But I was excited to hear it.
Yeah, we recently. It's been a long process, but we purchased the property next door to us, which is the old Vic Frank boatyard. They haven't built boats in there for quite some time. Matt actually used to be in that building as well. That's probably another story. But we redesigned exactly how that building's laid out. We've installed, we will have two 300-foot long docks with 480 three-phase power, which is a big deal. So we built those docks in this facility to really support larger boats. Still obviously going to support our smaller boats, but the interior space of the building was designed to build boats in and then railroad them out and drop them in the water. We're going to be removing that floor. And so we'll have 120 feet of waterway for boats to pull inside the building and close the door and do interior work. As we all know, working on boats in the Northwest through the winter is challenging. We're constantly fighting the weather as far as that outside work goes, and so having a covered space is a huge deal. We all have temperature control, and then we also have next door to that another 116-foot interior shed for more interior space. Lots of shop space inside, and expanding our offerings by quite a bit. So it's going to be great, especially for sporting. As if you've been here to our facility, you know we do have a lot of dock space, but we also fill that dock space up quite quickly, especially in our busy season. So this will give us the opportunity to have much more room for larger boats, but also to be able to support our clients. We like to bring boats to us because it makes it a lot easier for everybody. It's more efficient for the client. We're not traveling back and forth to the boat, having to go back to the shop if we just need that one screw. So to be able to host you here is a big deal.
Exciting stuff, and I don't think a lot of people on the East Coast quite know how big of an industry we have here, and that we do have a large number of large boats. Alaska's just up the waterway.
Yeah, there's not a lot between San Diego and us, and so we're really hoping to be that stop off for you to be able to have a short in-water yard period, full support for large boats.
We appreciate the time today, Max. Thank you.
Yeah.
See you in March.
Sounds good.
Thanks.